Greetings, urban farmers, gardeners, and healthy food visionaries. Farmer Greg here, and welcome to the 530th episode of the Urban Farm Podcast, where every day we work together to educate and inspire you to become part of your food revolution. Have you thought about why you do what you do? This is a daily process for me, and it is the reason I put so much energy and money into producing our Urban Farm Podcast. What you may not know is that it costs $158 per episode to get you this incredible information. And as you can hear, we don't do sponsorships, as we want to keep our message as clean as possible. It has always been my intent to pay for our podcast production with our online content sales, and that hasn't worked very well. So we're trying something new, and I need your help so that we can continue delivering this great content. And quite honestly, this is an easy learning-filled request. I've teamed up with some amazing gardening visionaries to host a free online edible backyard summit the week of March 23rd. When you attend, you'll get free access for the week to the knowledge of these food-growing experts and have an opportunity to get your burning questions answered live. Plus, we're going to release 5 modules of our comprehensive Growing Food the Basics course so that you can dig deeply into the fundamental concepts that will set you up for success no matter where you're at in your food-growing journey. So here's what I need. The most helpful thing you can do is to share our ediblebackyardsummit.com page far and wide with your friends, on social media, in your garden clubs, and probably places we've never even thought about. Next, please attend the free Edible Backyard Summit. My hope is that some of you will dive in, support our work, and purchase the extended summit and learn more about gardening and creating your own edible backyard. Our intent with this Edible Backyard Summit is for you to discover how you can truly thrive with a healthy life and get reconnected with your food while learning how to live a more self-reliant life, feeling secure knowing that you have a food supply right in your backyard. When you attend the Edible Backyard Summit, you'll be part of a community of people from around the world that are all on a mission to make their backyards and patios into an edible paradise. Whether you're starting your first garden or maintaining an existing one, you will come out of this summit feeling revitalized and re-inspired to make growing and eating food the celebration it should be. Sign up for free by going to ediblebackyardsummit.com or texting backyard to 33444. I look forward to seeing you there. Today on our podcast, we're addressing the significant conversations happening in the world today. I'm chatting with my general manager, Janis Norton, an all-around rock star, about the Urban Farm's response to COVID-19. Janis, we've been educating people all over the world to empower them in their own resilience. Now, all of a sudden, everything we do is becoming so much more important. Welcome, and thanks for joining me today. Are you ready to rock?
Absolutely, Greg. Thank you.
Awesome. So let's just jump in and look at our past 5 years. We actually launched the podcast in November of 2015, and it's been amazing, the amount of people that have been listening and the inputs that we get. What's been your experience?
Well, it's been fun to watch this happen. I came in about, 8 months after you started, and you already had a nice routine going. I have been here through most of the milestones and the celebrations of our amazing numbers that we're getting, and I've been really blessed to talk to some of your guests beforehand. And it's humbling to know what's happening out there and who's doing what out there.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the really cool things about what we do is we get to talk to some of the coolest people, whether it's, Joe the backyard farmer or Joe the rock star, literally.
Right. I get to talk to our guests a day or so ahead of time, and that's a chance for me to kind of touch base and make sure first that our technology is working, but also to kind of get a feel for what they're doing and what's happening in their world, and maybe kind of prompt them a little bit to look for things that we'd want to talk about that's cool. I am so amazed by the amount of community and education and world-changing events that are happening out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so humbled. I'm just amazingly humbled
Yeah.
by some of the people that we've talked to.
Well, that is, and we're going to get to that in a little while, but that is definitely the case. We get to talk to some amazing people, and I started this podcast to really get people educated about growing their own food because I am a firm believer that everybody needs to know where their food comes from and how to grow their own, especially in times like today.
I'm one of your best pupils, apparently, because when I first met you, I had not grown even a houseplant successfully. But after working with you for the last 5 years, I am, confident to have all sorts of stuff growing in my yard.
Nice. So you've been inspired.
Many times over.
Yeah.
Many times over.
So that's one of the big reasons that we do this podcast is inspire people off of the couch, out of jobs they hate, and out into the garden to get healthy. I've said for years that there are 3 things in our culture that cause 100% of the dis-ease, and that's lack of nutrition in our food, environmental toxins, and stress. And I've blown this past so many doctors and nutritionists and all around people that know, and everybody pretty much agrees with me that those are the things that are impacting our health, and what we can do about it is actually grow our own food.
Agreed. I myself have noticed a big difference. One of the things that you inspired me with the most when we first met, I was overwhelmed with this idea. I needed to change things in my life. And I knew that there was so many things that I was doing that could be changed or improved upon. And I didn't know where to start. And when you got up in front of the classroom, because I was one of your students at college, and you said, take one step at a time, do one thing, get good at it, then move on to the next. My mind was blown with how simple that was, but how impactfully easy it became to start changing things in what I was doing.
Well, and you know why I tell people that?
Because it's smart.
Well, that too. But the reason I tell people take one step at a time is if you go out and there take 10 steps and you fail, you're not going to start again. But if you pick one simple thing, go out and do it, and you're successful at it, that kind of drives you into a bigger conversation. Oh, how can we, what can we do? How can we do more? How can I make bigger change?
Absolutely. And now not only am I able to grow food for myself, for my family, I'm able to help teach other people how to do it because of what I've learned in just the past 5 years. That is an amazing transformation in my life about what there is to know and how easy it is to start growing and improving your knowledge of gardening and urban farming and orcharding and growing soil and so much more.
Yeah. When you brought up another great point there, the reason I do it is I'm a lifelong learner. I love to teach, but I also love to learn. And every time I talk to somebody, in fact, I had an amazing experience on the phone this morning. We recorded Joel Karsten's, he's the straw bale guy, the straw bale garden guy. We recorded his presentation for our summit next week, the Edible Backyard Summit. And I came out of that. First of all, I learned a bunch. And I am so dang inspired to go out and put in straw bale gardens.
We have friends in our community, our local community, that are active gardeners, master gardeners. My best friend who has participated in helping us get our project for next week ready. And even though he's been gardening for quite some time, he came away with it with about 15 new ideas of things he wanted to try.
Nice.
So I love hearing this because it's happening all around us.
Yeah. That's ediblebackyardsummit.com. We've been actually, interestingly enough, we've been planning this summit for about 6 months, and it just happened to fall during a very interesting time in our cultural timeline.
The reality is right now, daily life is changing all over the world, and we just need to be flexible. But one of the ways to be flexible, to be resilient, which is a word that we throw around a lot, is we have to be flexible. If we have knowledge, if we have education, and we start trying things, and we're flexible, we're going to be more resilient.
Well, that's what resilience is that flexibility. I like to explain resiliency as a rubber band. You stretch it out and it stretches and then you snap it and it snaps back. That's what building resiliency into our culture looks like. And the place to look for that is inside of what I've been studying for almost 30 years called permaculture.
I'm a big fan of it now. Locally, we've been trying to promote permaculture education, and we're now getting into a stage where things were really exciting and lots of opportunities. But, we're having to change our format a little bit since we're all going into a little bit of seclusion. And, that's affecting our podcast too. All of our energy that we're doing at the Urban Farm, we're having to reprioritize and move things around. And, we've been doing our bi-weekly podcast for more than a year now. Prior than that, it was from 3 times a week. We're starting to go weekly at the end of this month.
Yeah, not to worry if you're a new listener. We have over 550 episodes of the podcast. Yes, we are going to once a week. And yes, we have a lot of content that you can listen to. And a big part of the reason, quite honestly, that we're going to once a week from twice a week is the cost. It costs us $158 per episode to put the podcast out. And so I have an invitation for you all out there. If you're listening and you can help out a little bit, support our podcast. If you go to urbanfarmpodcast.org, you can find out the different ways to support us to keep this great content coming out. And, I would love at some point to be making, bringing in enough money to at least pay for the podcast, which we did not do last year. And once we get there, I'd love to go back to twice a week. But that's from a financial business perspective, especially with what's going on in the world today, I thought it was best that we move to one day a week. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and focus on some of the other things we're doing. And that's one reason why our costs are there, is that you and I have so much going on that we needed to bring in a couple of people to help do other stuff to make sure the podcast was happening. But, what we're doing in everywhere else that we are doing with the Urban Farm, it's not something we want to give up. There's just some big things happening.
Right. Well, so for you, it may not be something you want to give up. For me, it's something I can't give up. This is, for those of you that have heard this story, I'm going to apologize up front, but in 1974, I was in the 8th grade. I wrote a paper on how we were overfishing the oceans. I knew back then at the age of 14 or 15 that there was something significantly wrong with the way we were eating on the planet and the way we were treating the planet, and we needed to do something about it. So this has been my lifelong mission to, awaken people to a different, better, happier way. And that's what the Urban Farm is, which I bought the Urban Farm in 1989. So I've been growing food here for over 30 years, right in the middle of Phoenix. And my Urban Farm fruit tree program started in 1999. So we're in our 20th year on that. And then Urban Farm U, I think I started doing my first classes online in 2012, I'm going to guess, 2013. So, we got a good long history. We also have a blog that goes way back with all kinds of content on it. So there's a lot of great information on, in our network. And again, quite honestly, we just have to figure out how to get it paid for so that we can keep delivering it, so that we can make the house payments and so Janis can eat.
Oh, yeah, I do like to do that. And your mission in life was something that drew me into joining the Urban Farm, because it went along really well with my mission. My mission is community. I have been driven by this concept of building a great big family community longer than I can realize. And I, wake up in the morning with this idea of what can I do to help the people around me. It sounds kind of corny, but
not at all.
It is what drives me. So being part of what we are doing at the Urban Farm it's not something I can give up. I got to be honest. I can't.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Our podcasts have had some amazing people on them. Who were some of your favorites?
Oh my gosh. Well, most recently, David Holmgren. So for those of you, yeah, exactly right. So for those of you that don't know me all that well, I have studied something called permaculture. I like to, it's permanent agriculture, permanent culture. And I've studied it for over 30 years. And when I discovered it 30 years ago, for me, it was a coming home. It was like, oh, wow, there's actually something that I can call the way I've thought my entire life. I always thought I was a little strange. And the cool thing for me is that there were two founders of permaculture, Bill Mollison, who is no longer with us, and David Holmgren. And we got David Holmgren on the podcast this last fall. And normally what I do on a podcast is I just, I direct it pretty good. And I like to wrap them up in about 30 to 40 minutes. Well, let me tell you, I let him just start talking. And an hour and 31 minutes later, we concluded our chat. So for me, I think that's the one that you mentioned earlier that I was a little giddy on, right?
Well, in the background, I help gather all the data together for your interviews. And, we do have a certain format, but a huge chunk of the podcast is just you chatting with somebody. So I was waiting for you to get off the conversation and come back and tell me how it went. And you didn't, and you didn't, and you didn't. And I'm sitting here waiting going, oh my gosh, is there a problem? And when you called back to me and let me know that you were done, you were so jazzed about everything that happened in that interview. But it was too much. We could not do it as one episode.
Yeah. So there's David Holmgren for sure. We've had John Jevons on. We've had Ocean Robbins. We've had Elliot Coleman.
We've had a lot of great people.
Yeah. Well, over 550 episodes at this point.
That's true.
Well, and one of our classics every month is our seed chat. We bring in Bill McDormand and do a monthly seed chat, which has been going on for years. And that's in association with our Seed School online course. And that is pretty amazing too. He always brings some great content in.
Yeah, that man knows so much.
Yeah.
We have gathered so many podcasts, and being a little bit OCD, I like to put things into files and sorts and make things make sense. And so I started trying to categorize our topics in our podcasts. And I remember when I first started doing that list, I think I had about 15 different topics. But then I had to add more, and I had to add more. And I think we're up over 30 topics now of useful information, anything from building soil to all sorts of aspects of using seeds, of course, growing food, sharing. I mean, that's a big thing with our community, and various aspects of cooking. And there's so much more. I can't even tell you how exciting it is to make that list and see everything that is being discussed on the podcast. Yeah.
So I'm just looking through our most recent episodes. We had Jane Rabinowitz on her global seed work in Canada. That was an amazing episode. We've had, for a second time, we had Melissa Norris on the podcast from Pioneering Today. Is that her? Yeah, Pioneering Today podcast. She was incredible.
You run down a risk here. If you're going to start listing a few, you're going to want to have the whole list here. So be careful. It's too hard to isolate some of our best podcasts. Every time I'm asked, what's our best podcast? I stammer.
Well, yeah, there you go. Answer. Well, how many times have I called you and said, oh my God, I just recorded the best podcast ever?
If I had a quarter for every time you said that, I'd probably could buy a car.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm just really excited about how this has morphed into other aspects of what we do at the Urban Farm. We've invited some of our guests to do blog articles, and that's really been, fun too. Periodically interspersing extra information. But our world has changed recently, and you had a what-if brainstorm about trying to get some of the information that we have out. And, we just did a week of this. We just had a week of offering this solution.
And that is?
Well, we have to thank Taylor for helping set this up, but it is our daily gardening classes. We just thought we need to get this information out. People need to be empowered, and we wanted to offer positive solutions. And after brainstorming for about half an hour, the decision was to have a daily opportunity for somebody to come in and get some of the information that we've had from yourself and some of the other amazing educators that have come across our system.
Yeah. And we're calling it our gift to you. And really, honestly, I had to do it. This was a have to for me. So what we're doing at 5 p.m. Pacific on weekdays and at 9 a.m. Pacific on Saturday and Sunday. We're giving a free gardening class. It'll last an hour to an hour and a half. We'll have questions, Q&A sessions. We're just putting it out there. And the cool thing for me is that this was, we already had the infrastructure in place. And quite honestly, some of the classes you're going to be seeing are pre-recorded that we've done over the past 5 years that that class was so good. We're just going to resurrect it, bring it to you, and then answer your questions about it. And for me, I've had multiple people email me and thank me for doing this. And, we have the infrastructure in place. We have the knowledge in place. It's the most important thing that we can be doing right now. So it was, for our team, it was an of course.
Yeah. Speaking of being flexible, we were setting up our infrastructure. We had everything ready to go, but you were getting requests to allow this to be available for people at different time zones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because we've actually gotten a lot for those of you in Europe and beyond. There will be replays, so we'll be replaying our daily classes for 2 days after they play, so you can go back and watch them. So there is that, and there is the weekend classes, so you can attend live on the weekends. And we're looking to see what else our team has the energy to do at different times.
And our family of podcast guests who are experts in their area have been reaching out. They want to participate too. So we're going to be adding to this. This week we've had you as a primary teacher, but it's not going to be just you. It's going to be a whole slew of people sharing information.
Mm-hmm. On Tuesday night, we had our Seed Saving Basics class with Bill McDormand. And then on Wednesday night, we did our Jumpstart Your Spring Garden. That was me. And our longtime friend Scott Murray on Thursday night did his Victory Garden 2020 proposition.
That is inspiring.
Yeah, that is very inspiring. And then last night, Friday night, I did my Food System 3.0.
And today you are back with doing non-composting. So yeah, you're there a little bit, but you are the first one that was ready. I like what you're going to be teaching about non-composting because, composting gets overwhelming for some people, but it's really a lot easier if you kind of open your mind.
And when I talk about non-composting, I'm talking about the different things that you can do that actually have composting happen that isn't composting, that isn't traditional thermophilic composting. Let me put it to you that way.
We live in Phoenix, and thermophilic composting is not as easy as it sounds, even though we are in such high temperatures. Mm-hmm. But if you just open your mind to different options, you can still get what you want.
There you go. And then tomorrow, we're doing a Keeping Backyard Chickens course webinar. It won't be a course. It'll be an hour-long webinar, 9 a.m. Pacific, Sunday.
Right. And, Kari is amazing. I love how much that woman knows and how willing she is to share it. So having the summit right after that just makes sense.
Yeah. That's our month of gardening classes. That's the beginning of our month of gardening classes. And quite honestly, I'm going to bet that we're going to go at least 2 or 3 months of gardening classes every day just to get people in the loop and get them inspired. And if you want to know about that, go to iwanttogarden.com. And Janis mentioned our summit that's happening this week. The summit that we've been planning for several months is free for the week. You can listen to our daily 3 hours of gardening education, and that's available for 24 hours. And part of how we keep the lights on is that if you're interested, you can sign up and buy the Summit package, which is our complete growing food, the basics course that we've been giving online for about 5 years now. So
yes, but the course has been updated with brand new worksheets and resource collection. And this is the one that my Master Gardener friend has been so inspired by. I can't wait. I can't wait to see what kind of feedback we get on this summit.
Yeah, and not only is he inspired by it, but he's been helping us update the content for it, the PDFs and the content and the educational materials.
Yeah, but we didn't just do the summit around the Grow Food, the Basics. Typical Greg Peterson style, you said, what else can we do? What else can we add? What else can we put in this? And Taylor and I did our best, and wow, oh my gosh, you guys have surpassed expectations on this.
Yeah, wow. Our extra lineup for the summit next week, we have Joel Karsten on straw bale gardening. And after recording that, oh my God, I am so dang inspired to go out and put in straw bale gardens. You can be harvesting food out of your straw bale garden in 45 to 60 days.
That's just amazing.
Starting with a couple of pounds of fertilizer and a straw bale, which is really cool. Go ahead.
I love how easy and almost foolproof Joel makes it.
Yeah.
So I'm really digging his class.
Cool. So yeah, that's on Monday. That's a step-by-step class on how to do your own straw bale garden. On Tuesday, we'll have Emily Rocky. She's with Tank's Green Stuff. She's down in Tucson, Arizona. She's talking about building healthy soil. What is healthy soil made up of, and how do you build it? On Wednesday, I'm going to be talking about wickedly smart water harvesting. So, two of the key components for your garden is soil and water. And so making sure that we have healthy soil and plenty of water are two key components. And Janis, how much I believe in healthy soil. So we actually had Elaine Ingham on our podcast a while back, and she's come back and giving us a webinar on the soil microbiome. So we get to get 2 doses of what it takes to make healthy soil. And then on Friday, we have Jason Johns. He's an author out of the UK with a really rich accent. It's really cool to talk to him. And he's talking about starting tomatoes.
The gateway drug to gardening for many people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love how all of these classes and topics are going to be helping us. The soil that we live and work around is so important, and it doesn't take that much to change it one direction or another, but if we put our mind to it, we can make it better.
Big time. And it's really up to us. So really what we want you to do is go out there and get in action. Definitely sign up for our iwanttogarden.com lecture series on gardening classes. They're free. They're fun. You can get your questions answered, and you can find out more at iwanttogarden.com. And our summit is the Edible Backyard Summit. You can find out more about the Edible Backyard Summit at ediblebackyardsummit.com. And if you want to support our work, you can make a donation for our classes along the way. Not required, but we're putting it out there to help keep moving our process forward here. And then if you wanted to buy the summit package, you could buy that summit package and get the whole Growing Food, the Basics course, plus a whole lot more bonuses. So
Greg, we talked a little bit about supporting us. We are a small business, and, this is a tough time for small businesses. I wanted to say that small farms are not shutting down, and they still have product. So maybe what I would recommend is for everyone to reach out and find a local CSA in their area and see what they can do to participate in supporting small businesses and farms so that they don't have to shut down, because we cannot lose them.
Yeah. Well, and really what we need to do is we need to activate the gardens in our yards. For sure, listen to the Victory Garden 2020 talk from Thursday night. You still can listen to it today. And that's going to give you some inspiration about where we need to go. We all need to be starting to grow food. It could be that in the next 6 months to 2 years, we're going to need to count on our community gardens and our gardens in our backyard. So plant your fruit trees, plant your perennial asparagus, and plant your gardens.
Yeah. And know your community and know how much what we do now is going to make a difference in the future.
Yeah, big time. For those of you that may not know, my sweetie Heidi, longtime beloved partner, is a yoga teacher. And the yoga studios, most of the yoga studios in the country have been shut down. And so one of the things that we're going to do with Heidi is we're going to bring her in at the beginnings of our classes for about 5 minutes to talk a little bit about breathing, about staying grounded, about making sure that we get enough exercise and stretching. And so we're really excited about that. And over the past few days, Heidi and I have set up an in-home yoga studio so that we can actually start broadcasting yoga classes. So we've got that coming down the pike too.
That's what's amazing with our infrastructure at the urban farm. Locally, we were doing classes, we were doing tours, we were doing events that were designed to inspire our individuals in our community to do stuff. But because of the work that you've been doing for years and the infrastructure of webinars and podcasts that we've set up, we are transitioning and using this resource to keep our community empowered, inspired, healthy, grounded, and I love that we can do it.
Yeah.
I got to thank you. Thank you for being so dedicated to what you're doing.
Oh, you bet. And thank you for being such a great manager. So y'all need to know this. This is a great story. Janis was my student in one of my classes. So she was a student of mine at Arizona State University in 2014, maybe?
I think so.
2013, 2014. And she came to me one day in class and wanted to do an internship with the urban farm. And I pretty much didn't have the energy to deal with it at the time. So I kind of blew it off. Sorry. And she kept pestering me. And so I finally let her do an internship with us, or she let her do an internship with us.
Let's be real.
Yeah.
I had to beg you. I had to beg you, and you put me off and said, hey, why don't you just help me with one of my weekend events? After I did one of your weekend events, I then wasn't going to let go of that bone. No. I wanted to be part of it.
Yeah, there you go. So what's happened over the past 4 or 5 years with Janis is that over time she takes on more responsibility and handles more and more things. And that's why I call her affectionately my manager. She basically manages me now because I am a what if kind of guy. And the joke on our team is, oh my gosh, what kind of what if is Greg going to come up with today? And they're all around what can we do? What can we do to transform our food system and transform the world around us in a better way? So I just really want to acknowledge you and thank you, Janis, for all that you bring to the table and all the fun that we get to have.
Thank you for giving me a medium to use my skills and make a difference in my community. And thank you for introducing me to so many amazing people.
Oh, yeah. All right. Any last thoughts?
I want everybody to stay healthy. I want them to stay grounded and look for the empowering moments in your life.
That's what's going to keep us happy. You know, I was at a coffee house, not real recently. It's been about 2 months ago. And I was standing in line. It was like 7:30 in the morning. And the barista, there were 2 baristas. One was helping the woman to the left of me and the other one was helping me. And she said, my barista said, how are you doing? I said, oh my God, I'm doing so great. It's fantastic. And the woman in front of me looked at me and kind of scowled. And she said, what are you so happy about? And I said, well, when I get up in the morning, I have a choice. I can be happy or not. And for me, I found that choosing happiness works better. And honest to God, you know what she said, Janis?
What?
She said, just get over it. And she scowled and walked away. Yeah, it's right. It's like, some people are just that way. But we have a choice every single day. We have a choice. Choose happy. It's going to make you happier.
I agree. And Greg, I'm choosing the urban farm.
Love it.
I hope that our listeners can join us for the upcoming week. The summit is going to be mind-blowingly amazing. And then stay with us for the daily classes that we offer. I just think that it's going to be what we need to stay grounded. And I'll be there in the background in the chat room.
He's doing a rock star job in that for sure.
Thanks.
And I just want to do a shout out, first of all, to everybody out there that's been listening for so long, even our new listeners. Thank you so much. And I want to also throw kudos out to our team. First of all, Janis for managing all of us. Taylor, who is our online tech person and overall rock star. Renee does our social media, and it's expanding. Our social media is expanding us into new arenas. And then Ken and Katie, who are in our podcast production end. So it takes a team to get this done. And I just want to thank them and thank you for listening. And you can find more information and our podcast show notes at urbanfarm.org/changes. Hey, if you've enjoyed this podcast and are interested in listening to my first podcast series, Freshly Green from 2007, you can subscribe to support the Urban Farm podcast. With that, you will have access to Freshly Green and so much more bonus content. Visit urbanfarmpodcast.org to find out more and to pledge your support.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Urban Farm Podcast. Remember to listen for tips, advice, and resources to help you on your journey with urban farming. You can find us on the web at urbanfarm.org or send us an email to podcast@urbanfarm.org. In the words of Vincent van Gogh, great things are done by a series of small things brought together. Be encouraged that with each lesson learned and skill developed, you are one step closer in the direction of your dreams.